There is something strange going on when it comes to the lineup combination used tonight against the Carolina Hurricanes that is masterminded by head coach Kris Knoblauch. We'll get into all that and more today on Oilers Digest, but before we recap, or I should say preview, tonight's game against the Carolina Hurricanes, make sure to subscribe here to Oilers Digest, as 84% of you, or a little over 84% of you, have not yet subscribed to the channel. Make sure you do so, and you join us along the ride here for what seems to be, again, yet another interesting start here for the Edmonton Oilers. But without further ado, juggling the lines again. Yes, that is exactly what Kris Knoblauch is doing ahead of tonight's game against Carolina. But let's take a look at the advanced stats before going into this one, just to showcase how exactly similar this team is to last year's Oilers. And the results might surprise you, might not surprise you, who knows. When it comes to 5-on-5 expected goals percentage, the Oilers top 10 with 53.9. So that graphic suggests, the Oilers, they're doing fine. Nothing to worry about there. But when it comes to goals saved above expected, yes, almost 8.5 goals saved above expected. When it comes to, that is 8 goals more than they should let in. And thankfully Colorado is doing a little bit worse than us with Alex Georgiev. That's a little bit more worrisome than Stuart Skinner in the Oilers, but nonetheless the Oilers, they can't score, and Stuart Skinner, and for the extent Calvin Pickard with that one game against Chicago, is nearly letting everything in that is possible, and that leads the Oilers down to a league worst goal differential above expected at minus 15.7. So everything that's going wrong is going wrong for the Oilers, and pretty much nothing is going in the net. But the Oilers can correct course tonight, or at least try to, or they can't, against the Carolina Hurricanes. The Hurricanes roll into down for an 8 o'clock start, in my time zone anyway, but 7 o'clock local in Edmonton, and we'll take a look at the lineups. And Kris Knoblauch, like I said, doing something rather interesting, strange, interesting, call it what you want, but the top line of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, McDavid, and Hyman is back together as Kris Knoblauch splits up McDry, rightfully so. I mean, sure, they were, somewhat decent against Dallas, but this provides the Oilers a little bit more potency on the, or throughout the lineup with Jeff Skinner, Draisaitl, and Victor Arvidsson. So the two wingers that were, pretty much signed for Draisaitl to center that line together again. And Janmark, Derek Ryan, Connor Brown, and lastly here, Vasily Podkolzin and Adam Henrique in Perry. So pretty much the only change in the bottom six is swapping Derek Ryan for Adam Henrique. And on the back end, this is something else here, folks. Matisse Ekholm, Evan Bouchard, death taxes in that pairing. Nothing to worry about. But Travis Dermott and Darnell Nurse. Yes, Darnell Nurse on his offside, and that is not a mistake. I've seen 3 different tweets of this Oil lineup, and Darnell Nurse is starting out on the right side on all 3 of them. And lastly here, Brett Kulak and Troy Stetcher. So Ty Emberson, the odd man out, and Stuart Skinner between the pipes tonight. Kris Knoblauch, about that line with, Podkolzin and Henrique in Perry. So that seems to be the third line tonight. So swap those 2 lines, as Kris Knoblauch says. They've been pretty much stapled on that 4th line. This is an opportunity for them to move up in the lineup and get a little more responsibility. So very, very exciting here to see, a line like Podkolzin and Henrique and Perry. I wouldn't see it as a downgrade for Adam Henrique. Janmark Henrique Brown was phenomenal in the playoffs last year, but this is just a spark for Kris Knoblauch to get something else going in the bottom 6. Is the bottom 6 most games has outperformed the top 6 substantially. And then for Darnell Nurse, there were some positives from Kris Knoblauch, and he had this to say about Darnell Nurse. He's got to be assertive. He's got to be quick to close. I think he's one of the best in the league at doing that, just because of his physical ability, his speed, and his strength, and then also just his reach, being able to get a stick on so many parts. So, we've encouraged him to be able to play. It's difficult when he's on his toes and eliminating that time and space. Darnell Nurse, he's not all that bad. Sure, if he was like a $6 million defenseman, nobody would have a problem with him at all. But it's the cap that comes the problem, in the criticism from many and all Oiler fans. I like to call it the Chris Russell effect, when Chris Russell was significantly overpaid. But he was still a decent defenseman, but not at that cap hit. So Darnell Nurse on the right side. A little bit of an experiment, Ty Emberson coming at the expense of benching Ty Emberson. Not really a fan of that, but, Kris Knoblauch throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what sticks. I'm kind of, disappointed they didn't try this out in the preseason just to see if it did work. With the loss of Philip Broberg, sure, maybe throw Darnell Nurse on the right side and see what happens. But for this to happen, almost at 10 games into the regular season, it is quite an experiment. And yes, it makes a world of sense to swap Nurse onto his offside for at least a game or two. For one, it will encourage the 29-year-old to skate the puck out of his zone rather than make an outlet pass, an area of his game that has struggled of late. When many icing violations are called against the Oilers, the culprit many times is Darnell Nurse shooting the puck down the ice. So if he skates the puck out of the zone, that's less stoppages, and the game's done a lot quicker, and I don't mind that at all. With the new season still in its infancy, it's a rather low-risk, high-reward move to make. If it works, the Oilers suddenly have a few more options at their disposal on the back end, but if it falters, you simply move Darnell Nurse back to his usual spot and return to the drawing board, and Kris Knoblauch already has a plan if that doesn't work. Knoblauch confirms Nurse will be getting shifts on both the left side and the right side tonight, and I think that's exactly why they put Travis Dermott into the lineup. Dermott can play both sides, so it's sort of an experiment for Kris Knoblauch and Paul Coffey. Paul Coffey leading the defense core along the way here against Carolina. Do I prefer it against, a weaker opponent? Sure, maybe, ease Darnell Nurse into it rather than being fed to the Sharks, as Carolina, a bit of a dangerous team, but again, this is the NHL. He makes almost $10 million every year, so perform to your ability. But observing the opposition, yes, we will observe the Carolina Hurricanes, which are coming into Rogers Place tonight as the Oilers do begin a 2-game homestand with Carolina tonight and Pittsburgh on Friday. Carolina is sitting 6th in the Metropolitan Division, only 4 games played. I do believe that is the least out of the entire league, as they also had a postponed game against Tampa Bay. You can see they dropped 4-1 to Tampa Bay in their season opener, rattled off 2 wins against the New Jersey Devils and the Pittsburgh Penguins, while falling this past Saturday to the St. Louis Blues 4-3. So we'll just take a look into their lineup. Top line, Andrei Svechnikov, Sebastian Aho, Seth Jarvis, very potent offensively. Jackson Blake, which is the son of former NHLer Jason Blake, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Martin Necas, and their bottom 6 with a tremendous line here. Jordan Martinook, Jordan Staal, William Carrier, and then Jack Roslovic, Jack Drury, and Eric Robinson. And on the back end, Jacob Slavin and Brent Burns filling out that top pair for the Carolina Hurricanes. Shane Gostisbehere and Sean Walker, who many Oiler fans wanted at the trade deadline last year, got traded to Colorado, and then scored 2 goals against the Oilers and really did nothing after that. And lastly here, Dmitry Orlov and Jalen Chatfield. So again, a very, very dangerous Carolina team coming in here tonight. Of course, they're only 2-2, but Brendamore, tongue twister here, folks. Rod Brendamore always whips them into shape, and they should be a very good opposition matchup for the Oilers tonight. Of course, their last matchup together, 6-1, an Oiler win last November, I do believe, which kind of kickstarted the whole, tide, turning of the tide when it came to the Oilers sort of resurging after their poor start to the year. Now, hopefully that's what happens again tonight. Groundhog Day for the Edmonton Oilers. That's it for today's video. Let me know down in the comments what you think about the whole lineup situation. Would you change anything? Would you bring Ty Emberson back into the lineup? Would you get Pickard another game tonight? And what would you do about the power play? There were no power play changes noted today. That could always change heading into the game tonight. You could hopefully see Jeff Skinner in lieu of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Nothing against Nuge. Just needs to switch up tremendously. But let me know down in the comments. Enjoy the game tonight and have a fantastic day.